All right, guys, we're back staring at my engine bay, and in this video, we're going to talk about cold start. And I got a lot of questions about this. People are wondering what's the best process to warm up their engine. Is cold start really important? Is it safe to turn it off? And just lots of different questions about how it works. So I'm going to use this video to kind of explain what cold start is, what it does for your car, and why you may want to keep it on or turn it off. And hopefully this will help you out if you're trying to figure out what to do with your personal car. So starting off, we'll just talk about cold start, and this is primarily something that's put into our cars for emissions and efficiency purposes. So the big thing with cold start is, like the name says, the engine is cold, and the goal is to get as much heat into the engine and exhaust as possible, as quickly as possible. So what the car does is it basically starts up, runs slightly rich, and adjust the timing to put the engine under load. And by putting it under load, the car will basically create a lot more heat in the engine, and a lot of that extra fuel will make its way down the exhaust and also warm up the catalytic converter. Now, this is for a couple different reasons. A big one is getting a good air-fuel mix that burns efficiently inside the combustion chamber. When the engine is cold, especially in like really low temperatures, the engine is so cold that sometimes the fuel can even stick to the cylinder walls or the pistons when it's spraying into the engine. So it's important to get the engine up to temperature so that you can get an efficient burn and basically have a smooth running engine. The other aspect of it is, like I said, it'll run a little bit rich to carry that heat out to the exhaust. And this is primarily for emissions purposes because there are metals inside of your catalytic converter, and those metals will convert the toxic gases coming out of the engine into less harmful ones before it goes out through the exhaust. But that chemical reaction can only happen if those metals are at an elevated temperature. So by driving heat down into the exhaust and in the catalytic converter, it basically gets it working quicker. So that way your engine won't have as many toxic gases coming out into the atmosphere. Now, I know this brings up a lot of questions because many of you know that during the cold start cycle, your engine is basically at its most vulnerable state. Everything's way below the optimal heat range. So you want to do the best thing possible to make sure your engine has a long life and doesn't experience any excessive wear. And so another big question I get is if it's safe to turn off cold start. And I will say for the past 3 years, I've had cold start off on my 440i. I haven't had any issues with it. But I know some people that have, and really it just depends on your specific car and the circumstances. So a big issue that some people run into is when it gets really cold, the car can struggle to hold an idle. And part of that is, like I said, with the engine being really cold, it can be difficult for it to get an efficient air-fuel mix that burns efficiently. So if you're having that issue, you can just turn cold start back on, and that should eliminate the problem. Another issue, again, is emissions, and most of us don't really have emissions checks that consider the cold start sequence, but I know a lot of people just mentally want to make sure they're not adding any extra toxic gases to the environment or into the atmosphere. So, of course, if that's a part of your goals, even though it'll make the car a little bit quieter on cold start, you'll want to keep that on so that the cat gets heated up as quickly as possible so that you're not emitting those toxic gases. Also, another issue that some people run into is running high ethanol content, and usually this can be adjusted in the tune. So if you're on a custom tune running like full E85, you can ask your tuner to help adjust it. But if not, sometimes you can run into issues where not having cold start can make it a little bit more difficult for the car to turn over. Now, personally, I think the pros outweigh the cons. I'm not a big fan of, the kind of loud droning that happens with cold start. And I do turn on my car early in the morning a lot to go to work and car meets and things like that. So I much prefer to have the cold start turned off. Like I said, I turned it off 3 years ago when I first flashed my car, and I never turned it back on. I think the only time that I actually had an issue was when I got a custom tune and my tuner put it into the tune as well, and I didn't realize it. So I ended up doubling up and turning off cold start in the configuration menu, and the car didn't like that. So just make sure if you're getting a custom tune that you know what your tuner is doing in the file, because my tuner basically turned off burbles and everything that they knew I didn't want in the map, so I didn't have to change it in the configuration settings. Now, I know another thing that people are concerned about is the engine won't heat up because they like to let their car cold start, and then after it's done with the cold start cycle, they'll drive the car. Or sometimes even after the cold start cycle, they want to let their car sit for like, 5 minutes or whatever it takes for it to actually get up to temperature. Now, I don't think that's necessary, and there's one major reason why. It's really easy to think about if you're in the cold start sequence and the car is holding like 1200 RPMs, you know how loud it is, the car's droning and giving you like a really deep burbling sound. But if you're just in park or in neutral and hold your revs at 1200 RPM, it doesn't make that same amount of noise. It's much quieter and cleaner. And the reason for that is because it's not just holding the revs up, it is putting your engine under load. And what does that do? It pretty much replicates driving your car. So even the OEMs know that tuning that into your car will actually help the engine warm up more quickly, but it's common knowledge that most people don't get in their car and drive it. They're going to put on their seatbelt, mess with the radio, and do other things before they actually drive their car away. So they tune it into the car to basically simulate you driving it so that it can begin warming up the components more efficiently. And that basically is why I feel like driving your car is the best way to warm up your car as quickly as possible. I don't wait a significant amount of time. I mean, I do whatever's comfortable. Like everybody else, I put on my seatbelt and get everything set up before I drive. But I do not wait for the car to get up to temperature before I get out of my driveway. Now, one thing I do make sure is that I'm not beating on the car until it's up to temperature. So while you're driving the car around, it shouldn't take very long, and you'll see the needle start moving after putting maybe 1 or 2 miles on it. But just keep the RPMs below like 2 to 2500 RPM. Don't floor it, don't beat on it, and it'll gradually heat up, get up to temperature, and then you'll be in a perfect setup for you to be able to drive the car however you want. So hopefully that makes sense. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy because I don't let my car sit and idle for like 5 minutes or whatever. But that's also a reason why a lot of cities and countries have laws that prevent you from letting your car sit and idle, because majority of the time, all you're doing is letting more gases go up into the atmosphere. You're wasting gas, and it's not really helping the car run more efficiently compared to actually driving it. Now, of course, if it's like the dead of winter and you're somewhere way up north like Canada and it's just not even safe or comfortable to try to drive the car in like negative 20 Celsius or whatever you might be experiencing, I definitely understand that. Turn on your heated seats and do what you need to do to at least make sure you're not freezing in the car while driving, but you're not going to be doing anything for the health of the engine to wait before you drive the car. So yeah, that's my thought on things. Hopefully this kind of helps you guys figure out whether you want to try it or not. If you do try it and you don't like it, you can simply turn it back on. It really doesn't make a difference, and it only takes like 60 seconds to flash your car. So I definitely think it's worth a shot if you're interested in it. Nobody can tell you exactly what's going to happen. Your best bet is just to try it and test it out for yourself. And yeah, that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. Chicka 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 chic